control his anger, but easy to give in charity. Another could find it difficult to be generous, but he might find it difficult to be generous, but he'll find it very easy to control his anger, and so on and so forth. So everybody's got their own personal weaknesses. So what is required of a person is to work on these weaknesses, such that he at least reaches a level of acceptance in Islam. In other words, that his weaknesses do not cause him to leave an obligation or to fail in doing a prohibited matter.
Shaykh, the companions have this weakness as well of getting angry?
Of course, the companions had these kind of weaknesses. In fact, you'll find that one of the companions, Usama ibn Zayd, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, the Prophet ﷺ was told about a behavior that or an action that he did in one of the battlefields. He was, during the battlefield, a person said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. This person was a non-Muslim. And Usama was just about to kill this person. And one could say that it was anger that led him to continue to kill him. Okay, one could say that. However, when he was explaining this to the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ, he got angry. And he said, why did you do this? He replied, he said, because he only said the Shahada to save himself. Now, and so this is one way of looking at this weakness. Inshallah, let's have a look at what some of the people outside, they had to say about anger.
Anger is a natural reaction taken by any person when provoked.
An angry person may lose concentration, make fights with other people, and lose persons.
It is putting a pressure on the person who is angry and make him less behavior in front of the people.
You can notice someone's angry by the look in his eyes, as they suddenly turns red, and he is incapable of controlling himself. Mentally he is weak. Physically he becomes way much stronger than he could believe. And I know that from previous experiences.
Someone get anger, lose his control, get frustrated, maybe get anger on somebody.
Well, he normally makes irresponsible actions, and he could swear a lot on people and could make fights with them.
An angry person, he does a lot of things, one of which he slams doors, he throws things in front of him, he puts his anger into other people, like fighting them, beating them, and sometimes he goes into wrong ways like smoking weed, pot, or those stuff.
Very interesting comments there. We were talking about the different causes of anger, or the two main causes of anger. And we said that there are of two types. Firstly, internal causes. Internal causes when a person is naturally feels angry. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created different people with different weaknesses, and this person, he has the weakness of getting angry quickly. The slightest of irritation, blood boils, and all these kind of things. The second type of cause is the external causes, on the other hand, and these are based on the environment. A person, he might keep company with people who boast about their anger and their lack of forbearance, and they speak proudly about how they act in accordance with their anger and call this bravery or courage. So when a person keeps company with these types of people, he might eventually begin to glorify this excessive anger, and he might think that this is something good. And as the fire of anger gets severer, the person becomes blinded by this anger, and he becomes less and less prone to listening to advice about his temper. And if someone tries to advise him, he doesn't listen to him. In fact, this actually enrages him further. And if his intellect tells him something that he's wrong, then the anger gets the better of him and extinguishes any kind of rationale. And he's overcome with blinded emotion that he must act by. Now, anger affects a person differently. It affects a person's appearance, both on his tongue, on his limbs, on his face, and we can see that. So let's have some examples of how anger affects a person, Baha.
I think changing in his face color.
Yeah, some people become red, yeah.
Yes, and his eyes sometimes get red.
Uh-huh, yeah.
So, and making, like breaking something, or I think that's only.
Yeah. Guras?
Yeah, and for example, he would begin to sweat. Saliva will come out of his mouth.
Animal kind of characteristic.
Yeah, and
walking up and down.
Acting in a way that he wouldn't normally act.
And if he was to look at this later on, he'll think,
he'd be embarrassed.
Exactly, he'd be embarrassed to say to himself, is that really me? He can't believe that that's him.
He may begin to become violent, he may tear things, he may stamp, he may, becomes very, very disgusting. All the animalistic characteristics become apparent in him.
And what if the person's not there?
Then
he's angry with someone who's...
I've seen it with my own eyes. He may even break a window with his bare fists. He may lift up a chair and throw it for the sake of it.
I know a person who actually threw his mobile phone out. Brand new mobile phone. Very expensive. Got angry, out it went the window. And he regretted it later. Yeah. And in fact, the phone didn't belong to him. It belonged to somebody else. So he had a big bill at the end of it. And this is some of the problems of anger, as we can see very clearly. And this is actually just on the limbs. We've spoken about, what about the tongue? I mean
swearing.
Cursing.
Swearing. And all these things are not from the characteristics of a Muslim. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir, falyaqul khayran aw liyasmut." That if whoever believes in Allah and the last day, then let him say good or remain silent. And this is not from the characteristic of the Muslim. We can see actually anger also has an internal effect on a person.
Even with the speech, sometimes it's not always the bad words, it's sometimes you say things.
Yeah, maybe in an aggressive tone.
Yeah, or maybe you say something about a person which may ruin the relationship.
Yes, exactly. That's a very, very good point, because two people, they may be good friends. A person says something in a state of anger, and he may not even mean what he's saying. But the other person, he's listening to this. He says there's no smoke without fire. He must have meant that. And this can actually ruin a person's relationship with somebody else. And this actually is just simply all these characteristics of a person, all of these characteristics, whether it's on the face, whether it's on the limbs, whether it's on the tongue, all of this put together, it's just a reflection of what is inside. And what's inside is actually much worse. Things like a person may have hatred in his heart, rancor, malice, jealousy, envy, and all these different characteristics, all of which have been prohibited in some form or fashion in the Sharia of Islam. Inshallah, in the next episode, we will look at some of the ways that we can control blind anger, and we can see some of the things that a person can do, a person who suffers from this extreme anger. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.